Too big to be labelled a microbrewery, yet not quite the beer-producing giant, the Blue Tongue Brewery at Cameron Park has just started distributing its lager and ginger beer varieties to a handful of local pubs.
The lager is designed to be an easy drinking, full flavoured product that people can drink more than just one or two of.
For head brewer Bruce Peachy, both beer recipes are his own and he's making no secret of the special ingredient.
A devotion, and that's one of the great advantages of small breweries. You can employ people with passion for brewing, and their attention to detail is great.
Due to a delivery delay in the distinct green glass bottles, both beers will remain available on tap until the end of next month. The owners effectively putting their winemaking cousins on notice as they attempt to break into a saturated alcoholic market.
Our research indicates that the region will be able to cope with the type of demand that you can see here.
Although quiet today, the new venture will employ 20 staff when all aspects of the brewery are up and running. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
If it wasn't for the quick thinking of Barry Carter, things could have been much worse. What was meant to be a simple celebration among friends quickly turned ugly when a fireball engulfed an area of the Finglehaven retirement village. It's believed gas leaking from this bottle, which was sitting under a barbecue, ignited.
Just a ball covering the whole area here, and once it was extinguished, there's people just screamed.
There's been a gas leak. What we're not sure about is whether it's come from a loose fitting or whether someone's accidentally turned on the separate bottle that wasn't connected.
Mr Carter extinguished the blaze while his wife called for help.
She raced over initially to get the nursing staff and ring up for the ambulance.
A 42-year-old Queensland man, his 40-year-old wife and an 88-year-old Fingal Bay man were airlifted to Sydney suffering serious burns to the body. The incident has sparked a warning from the Rural Fire Service for people to regularly check their gas bottles and cylinders.
Make sure all the fittings are tightened, especially on barbecues that aren't yours.
Colleen West, NBN News.
The confidence is a big thing. I'm still getting the touch back and the fitness, and tonight Cookie just said, if you get on, just play a natural game and just enjoy it. So.
For those kids who have already done it all these school holidays, here's something new. And at the Newcastle Regional Museum, anyone can become a musician. Or maybe karaoke is more to your liking. Whatever the case, the latest exhibition is certainly making an impression.
I liked the ultraviolet lights where you go in the room and it's all bright.
And some are learning at every display.
How interesting sounds and light can be and what it can do.
But the main aim is to have fun.
Yeah, it's designed to teach, but I must admit it's soft on the teaching in comparison to some exhibitions. Basically, we want them to feel empowered to make music and to see how light works.
The Sound and Light exhibition runs until Easter. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
After riding a somewhat emotional roller coaster in the past week, Steve Waugh was back on deck today. His first item of business is to get the Blues on track in the domestic series.
It's certainly a challenge for all of us, yeah. Well, I think we're a fair way behind right now. I've got some work to do. Obviously here we need to win or to play well to get things going. We've only got 5 games left, so we need to get a move on.
Newcastle's number 1 sports ground has been a happy hunting ground for the Blues. Last year they scraped home against Western Australia, thanks largely to a Simon Kadich 5-wicket haul and a near-perfect playing pitch.
It looks good from here, but no, I haven't seen the pitch yet. But if it's anywhere near as good as last year, it'll be excellent, because that was probably the best pitch we played on last year, anywhere.
This time around, New South Wales regulars, including Michael Clarke and Brett Lee, will be on one-day duty in Melbourne. But in good news for the Blues, paceman Stuart Clark comes into the starting 11, and not a moment too soon, out to unsettle Victoria's impressive batting average.
We've got to do better than we're doing, so it's a big challenge ahead.
Whatever the outcome, many of those attending the 4-day match will just want a piece of Steve Waugh, there to help him celebrate life after Test cricket. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Since a fire swept through the Southland colliery before Christmas, employees have been forced to take annual leave or have been rostered on for a couple of shifts a week. But management is optimistic the mine will reopen after early checks indicated the longwall mining equipment may not have been damaged.
Safety first and production will follow. We haven't injured anyone and we will make sure that in the re-entry plan we won't be injuring anyone, so we're all working together to achieve that and get back to the mine as quickly as possible.
The best case scenario is that the mine will become fully operational in 3 months, but that's only if there's been minimal damage to the longwall mining equipment. Until it reopens, workers can take up casual work at other mining sites.
They could walk away with the confidence to know that their entitlements are not under threat, and they could walk away with the ability, if they so chose to do so, is to look for alternative work, and knowing that their employment would be preserved if they took up a casual position. Workers at P&H MinePro Mount Thorley have spent their festive season manning this picket line. They're on strike over the company's plan to introduce individual workplace agreements.
It's very un-Australian, and you'll find most of these big multinational companies are putting most employees through this sort of thing. They want everyone on an individual contract.
Last month, the company announced it would close a workshop and 35 workers would be made redundant. But it's since assured staff no jobs will be lost before the 16th of January. But just what will happen after Friday remains unknown.
Yeah, uncertainty, not knowing where the next dollar's going to come from, not knowing if you can go and look for another job or whether you're going to have your job here.
Despite the strike, work has continued at the site with subcontractors brought in to repair and service mining equipment. It's a move which has outraged unions.
We're trying to save the company money, we're trying to create some efficiencies, and certainly we are trying to save some jobs for these guys.
P&H MinePro was unable to be contacted today. As for the workers, they say they won't back down on their fight. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Since winning World Championship gold for the 10-metre synchronised platform, the Australian pair have been under pressure to maintain peak performance. While Matthew Helm was only just past fit enough to dive hours before the event, it was not offered as an excuse, as English duo of Leon Taylor and Peter Waterfield beat them into second. Helm dives for individual success tomorrow. Despite not being seeded in the top three, Paul Parks looks tough to beat for the Catho Surf Classic. Merewether-based, Parks grew up on waves around Catherine Hill Bay and is eyeing for a fifth Open crown tomorrow. On the calmer waters of Newcastle Harbour, it was a Lake Macquarie-based boat, Sika, that claimed national 15-foot skiff sailing honours. The Rod Carter skippered crew holding off Port Hunter-based boat Trojan Measurement Solutions. And the Hunter Pirates play the Cairns Taipans tonight after losing overnight to Townsville. It really was a night to forget for Hunter, turning over far too much ball to a Crocs team looking to avenge a loss last weekend. Geordie Cullen continues his rich run of form though, sinking a new personal game-high tally of 35 points.
It was an outstanding engineering feat and well ahead of its time. Even today, 100 years since the Luscantire Bridge was opened, the structural design is still very impressive. Back in 1904, the Steel Truss Bridge was the second largest outside Sydney, behind the Hawkesbury Railway Bridge. Its construction was a coup for the small farming village of Luscantire. 700 people attended the official opening, with celebrations continuing for 7 hours.
Well, I think it must have been very important for them because for so many years they would have been cut off from getting their produce across the river here. There would have been freshers and floods in the river. Sometimes I think they were blocked off for about 7 weeks at a time.
But the bridge didn't come without a hard-fought battle.
Well, there was a lot of agitation that went on for quite a few years before the bridge was built. There were deputations and petitions.
Des Maher, Neville Harmon and historian Lindsay Wood today celebrated the bridge's centenary and are urging the community to recognise the efforts of their forefathers.
I think they just take it for granted. There'll be many driving over here today just wouldn't appreciate that 100 years ago to this day all that was taking place and what a lot of work was involved in actually getting the bridge built here in the first place.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
There's no hiding the level of dissent in Murrurundi over the state government's two plans to divvy up the Shire. Under an Upper Hunter Council amalgamation, the township would be absorbed by neighbours Scone, while the Western Farming District becomes part of the proposed Liverpool Plains Council. The Boundaries Commission's decision today to allow another 2 weeks for public input on the Murrurundi-Scone option has only added to the anguish over the future of Murrurundi Council.
And we certainly are now concerned that the Liverpool Plains, which is intrinsically entwined in the Upper Hunter proposal, the Liverpool Plains one hasn't been extended.
But the decision does have a silver lining. Scone Mayor Barry Rose says the extra time will allow further opposition to be voiced from within his shire.
The consultation process has been a joke, and we hope that at least the Boundaries Commission now, by recognising that there was insufficient time, might be listening.
While Murrurundi and Scone councils await a decision on their future, there's questions about a third proposal for the region for an Upper Hunter Super Council. The state government's silent, but there's speculation it could be next on the government's agenda. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Site work has started on one of the most anticipated developments in Scone's recent history, a well-equipped medical centre designed to put the town at the forefront of modern healthcare.
It'll have 11 consulting rooms, special rooms, pathology services and extremely good amenity for the people that will use it.
The centre is being built by council behind the existing facility at a cost of $1.6 million. As well as providing GP and specialist care, it'll also be a training ground for medical students and registrars, hopefully securing services for the future.
The new amenity will certainly enable medical practitioners and specialists to come to Scone and certainly will be there for the long time.
The centre should be complete by the end of the year. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
There's no hiding the dissent in Murrurundi over the state government's plans to divvy up the Shire. Under an Upper Hunter Council amalgamation, the township will be absorbed by neighbours Scone, whilst the Western Farming District becomes part of the proposed Liverpool Plains Council. The Boundaries Commission's decision to allow another 2 weeks for public comment on the Murrurundi-Scone option has only added to the anguish over the future of Murrurundi Council.
And we certainly are now concerned that the Liverpool Plains, which is intrinsically entwined in the Upper Hunter proposal, the Liverpool Plains one hasn't been extended.
But Scone Mayor Barry Rose says the extra time will allow further opposition to be voiced from within his shire over the amalgamation.
The consultation process has been a joke, and we hope that at least the Boundaries Commission now, by recognising that there was insufficient time, might be listening.
Amid the amalgamation debate, councils are preparing for elections on March 27 to decide the elected representation, which is due to serve until 2008. Murrurundi Mayor Earl Kelleher expects the current furore will see strong support to retain local democracy.
We've got a lot of the community that have come out of the woodwork, and they might just happen to stick their hand up and say they will stand for council in this situation because they definitely want to fight it.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
This was the fiery wake-up call residents of Main Road, Cardiff received about 3:30 this morning. A car in a driveway exploded just moments after neighbours heard suspicious noises in the street.
Went out to the front gate and seen a couple of suspicious characters down the road looking back up at me. And then there was a big fireball. The car went up in flames and some young kid was off on his bike down the road, and I was just yelling, "What do you think you're doing?"
There were initial fears for a family asleep in the house.
The way the flames were going, because there's a lot of trees and dry leaves and all that there, I thought the house was going to go up as well.
An off-duty rural fire service volunteer put the fire out. The vehicle was rented by a Cardiff man while he shops for a car of his own. Police arrived later and canvassed the area, but the 3 teenagers dressed in black had long gone. Paul Lobb, NBN News. 3 years ago, Premier Bob Carr signed a development contract with Aussteel to help build a $2.8 billion steel mill in Newcastle.
We'll be acquiring the site, we'll be undertaking the site preparation work up to, I think it's $60 million.
Just a year ago, everything was on track.
The government has done and will continue to do everything to see that investors can move ahead with this project.
But now the relationship between the company and the government has soured and Newcastle is the likely loser.
The last thing we want to see is the government and Aussteel squaring off with QCs at 50 paces, threatening to sue each other, which it just really causes a problem into the future. We'd much rather whatever the problems are exposed, thought through, fixed, and this project goes ahead as soon as possible.
This is a Labor Premier who was more interested in getting the spin doctors out 3 years ago to sell a project than he was in doing the necessary homework to make sure that a steelworks in the Hunter was a reality and could get finished.
The government promised to fund the infrastructure needed if the company paid for the steel mill. A 2-week arbitration hearing will be held next month. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's this type of water the project aims to harness, and on a day like today, there's certainly plenty of it slipping away into our drains.
We need to look at how we use water, where that water comes from, and how the water from our homes actually affects the natural creek lines.
15 homes in Katara are currently being installed with rainwater tanks. They will be monitored over the next 4 years to see whether using the tanks can improve the health of our creeks, as well as reducing household water bills.
It will help to conserve water, and 2, will help to relieve pressure on stormwater systems.
And that's exactly what preliminary studies are showing. It's hoped the initiative between Newcastle Council, the University and Hunter Water will eventually be taken up by householders across the region. And while the initial set-up cost of a tank can be expensive, it's estimated that domestic water bills could be reduced by around $200 a year. Hunter Water is also looking at ways it can assist.
We're certainly looking at the benefits of introducing a rebates on rainwater tanks.
Colleen West, NBN News.
While some of us have been sheltering in air-conditioned offices, spare a thought for this group of young people who have braved the scorching heat, the pouring rain, and not to mention the hundreds of mosquitoes at Windearers Creek Reserve. The team have been clearing weeds, planting more than 1,000 native trees, and have developed a creek bed to prevent erosion.
It's been a lot of weed removal, lantana, and hard work, but again, that's all the basis for getting them, developed and prepared for life in the real world.
And with koalas nestled in the treetops, the participants say they've enjoyed restoring the koala habitat.
This particular site has a fair number of koalas, so everyone loves koalas. If you go and ask someone, there's not many people that won't say they like them. So if you're getting out and helping them, making their environment more comfortable for them, then I think you're doing everyone a favour.
The team will move between 7 job sites over the next 6 months. Meanwhile, Duns Creek residents are celebrating tonight following Port Stephens Council's decision to reject the Duns Creek Resort development. The $43 million resort proposal with 7-star hotel was rejected 10 votes to 2 last night. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Hundreds of passengers take the 3-minute ferry ride between Stockton and Newcastle every day, but many believe the service would be more flexible if there was a third stop further west in the harbour.
Great benefit to people over here. If you have to use your car, it's a long way round, and there's really nowhere to park without having to pay over town. So, I think it would be a great benefit. Now, anywhere downtown would be good.
A wharf already exists next to the Cowper Street Bridge at Wickham, where the city's 2 ferries are moored each night, next to the quickly growing Lyndwood area of Honeysuckle.
Well, the corporation has always been about refocusing the city on the harbour, and anything that provides activation on the harbour and gets people on the harbour's edge, at the active edge of the harbour, down here at Honeysuckle, we'd be very interested in helping with.
The Newcastle Alliance, as you know, represents the businesses in the city, and increased patrons in town is good for business.
But State Transit today said that passenger numbers on the existing service are already very low, averaging just 15 passengers per trip, so an expansion would be unviable. Almost 3 hours from home, Murrurundi and Scone faced the public hearing in a last throw of the dice to argue that they be left alone. The Local Government Boundaries Commission was told why Murrurundi Council should not be carved up. Neighbour Corindi wants Murrurundi's western farmlands for a new Liverpool Plains Shire. And in what would be a forced merger that it doesn't want, Scone Council gains Murrurundi Township to complete the elimination of the Shire next door. In addition to the councils, community representatives from both areas also addressed the Commission. The Commission heard while neither council is interested in amalgamation, there is also no financial advantage. Murrurundi argued its residents are happy with what they have at the moment, while Scone summed up its case by saying the inquiry doesn't even have enough information to make an informed decision. Factors expected to influence the Commission's report to the state government are forecast that the abolition of Murrurundi Shire will cost jobs and cause a decline in population, issues the Commission has been warned about by Local Government Minister Tony Kelly.
I have no intention of signing off on any boundary change if it means there's a loss of jobs in a town.
The final decision on the future for both councils now rests with Minister Kelly, although it's not known whether he will take days, weeks or even months to decide their fate. Gary Blair, NBN News.
This strip of scenic beachfront will soon be reduced to little more than scorched earth. It's believed the 5,000 square metre site has been poisoned, killing dozens of shrubs and 16 trees, including blackbutt gums, banksias and a landmark Norfolk Island pine.
Chemical I've used has effectively sterilised this site, so we've got at least 12 months for the chemical to work down through the soil profile before we can go through and do revegetation works.
In some areas, it's believed a harsh chemical was sprinkled on the ground. Trees as old as 80 were also drilled and filled with a substance that will eventually cause them to wither and die. In 6 months' time, there will be virtually no living plants on this section of the reserve. Just a small blanket of grass is expected to survive.
The loss of the canopy means that the sand becomes unstable, and through the forces of the wind, the sand is going to shift away, causing major erosion problems for the buildings.
Council says restoration of the site could cost ratepayers as much as $215,000, and it's now calling on the public for help.
I think if we can get the community on side and people who are prepared to do this sort of thing might think twice about it.
If those responsible are found, they could face fines of up to $1 million, as well as being ordered to remediate the site. A new Australian record has been set by Sydney's Andrei Yakimov, who managed to catch a 96.5 kilogram black marlin on just an 8 kilogram line, breaking a 16-year record. The next best catch of the tournament so far has been a 475 kilometre tiger shark, which was caught by Port Stephens man Phil Howarth. The week-long event wraps up on the weekend.
For those attending the Urological Society's gala dinner, last night's trek through the Stockton Bight sand dunes was all part of the mystery and a far cry from their temporary base camp in Wheeler Place. But what was to greet them at the end would change the way people think about how to stage conferences, the organisers thinking well and truly outside the square. Belly dancers, camels and oasis-like palm trees set the tone, as did Mother Nature, playing her part on cue as the visiting delegation made their way into what could have been an Aladdin's cave. Nothing spared to make for a genuine Arabian night, while at the same time showing the Stockton Bight sand dunes in a light rarely seen. No doubt well worth the effort by local tourist operators, including 30 four-wheel drive transport companies, responsible for getting the visitors to and from the event, setting new ecotourism standards. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It was the Port Stephens Coastal Patrol radio base that alerted emergency services after the three men failed to return home from their diving trip.
He was logged on here yesterday morning, did not log off at 3 o'clock when he was due to come back. We put it in the hands of the police at 4 o'clock and then they take it from there.
The volunteer organisation's vital services were recognised today with Nelson Bay RSL Club's donation of $10,000 to help pay for fuel for the rescue boats and to cover the cost of training booklets for new recruits.
It's a sight everyone has wanted to see, including the man himself, but racing time is now the key for Ben Kennedy. While heartened by the ability to run today, his ankle still has to improve.
I've done a little bit of work on it, but not too much physical stuff. So when I was standing, it felt pretty good, and running felt pretty good. So I'll go down Thursday and give it a bit of a workout Thursday.
While desperate to play the season opener, he knows it's a long season.
Just got to weigh it up. It is the start of the season, but I'm keen to play. We've been training for so long. You finally get a chance to play, I really want to play.
We'll give him until Thursday or even possibly Friday, because I know how important it is to the team.
With that in mind, Todd Lowry is on standby for the test lock, while Matt Parsons will start from the bench after getting the all-clear to play.
I suppose I've been around a little while now and I know what to expect on Friday night, and I'll probably have to play within myself a little bit, but I'll certainly be doing the best I can.
Their skipper knows just how much they both mean to the side.
Yeah, they both do so much, I suppose, for my game. I feed off their go forward. And
it's a hamstring troubling forward Andrew Price, and he'll know if he's right on Thursday. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
If you were anywhere near the Maitland Rally Ground today, you'd be excused for thinking the city is caught in a time warp. These steam-powered traction engines, the tractors of the 1920s, are warming up for this weekend's Steamfest celebrations.
Yes, most of the action really starts tomorrow. Today it's unloading, getting everything into place.
The traction engines are mostly 4-horsepower steam-powered beasts. They have no brakes, let alone ABS, so don't get in the way of one. They're one of many Steamfest attractions. Another crowd favourite is the steam train rides. The 3112 rolled into Newcastle this afternoon. But it's the Train and Tiger Moth race that's expected to draw the biggest crowds when it kicks off at Broadmeadow train station on Sunday at 3:20 p.m. Now, in its 19th year, Steamfest is Maitland's biggest cultural and tourism event.
In honour of South Maitland Railways, which was the last coal-powered steam freight company in Australia.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Just what to do with this boulder since it came crashing down in October 2002 has been the subject of contention. But it's the cliff from where the rock fell which is causing the greatest safety concern. Not for much longer though, with $440,000 now made available to fund the work.
It can be stabilised to a point where it is safe enough to allow pedestrian traffic through there. We're also going to need to be able to provide access for service vehicles, so there can be further work and repairs done down there.
However, the future of this accidental landmark has left the council between a rock and a hard place.
One, it could be pushed back against the cliff face. Two, it could be removed, and those sorts of decisions are not yet determined.
The Maitland Youth Enterprise Drop-In Centre is just that, a place for kids and young parents to feel like they belong. As of Friday, there's no more money in the coffers to pay for a full-time youth worker, which was funded by a one-off state government grant. That means the centre could be closed due to a lack of supervision.
We've appealed to everybody, the council, state government, and there's just no happy endings, I'm afraid.
The management committee has just 6 days to secure funding for the youth worker, hoping both the local and state governments bind together to throw them a lifeline.
Well, we can fund a war in Iraq. Why can't we fund a measly youth centre here in Maitland?
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Despite being identified in numerous state government reports as a region in need of additional radiation therapy equipment, the Hunter is no closer to obtaining the 2 linear accelerators it so desperately requires. The oncology unit at the Mater Hospital has 3 of the machines, but needs 5 of its to meet the current demand.
We're working our radiotherapy machines and our staff as intensively as we possibly can. It's not a case of working or needing to work harder, we just really need some expanded capacity.
And it's not just Hunter patients who are missing out. The oncology ward at the Mater is the only one of its kind between Gosford and Queensland. Its catchment area is almost 1 million people, making the situation of insufficient machinery and an apparent lack of funding even harder to understand. But today the Minister for Health, Maurice Yemmer, hit back at claims he snubbed the Hunter, saying $18 million has been set aside on the basis the Mater Hospital redevelopment does proceed. But if it doesn't, a solution to the region's radiation therapy crisis isn't any clearer. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.